I want to bring up to the stage Miss Beverly Tan from Ecovate 3D, who is going to speak a little bit. Now, okay, be careful here with this. Look at these heels, ladies and gentlemen. Can you...
I'm not wearing them all day, I promise.
Not all day?
Not all day.
This is a fantastic top, by the way.
Thank you.
Just to say, can you do a little turn for us? Show that.
The back isn't finished, which is why I'm wearing a jacket.
Looks great. Beverly, feel free to take the stage and let us know everything you've learned about running a 3D printing business.
Hi everyone, I'm Beverly, and wow, this is kind of historic. The very first Printed World Conference talk, and they somehow asked me to do it. So good morning everyone, I'm Beverly. I am the founder of Ecovate 3D. We are a brick and mortar 3D printing store, so you can just walk into a store and buy 3D printers. We don't really have those in the US. There's actually 10 in the entire United States, and mine is just one of the older ones. So I got into 3D printing in 2018. My background is I'm a TV producer. So I started making mods for my cameras, things to hold things, lens caps, etc. And 3D printing in 2018 was not the friendliest place on the internet, especially when you look like me. So I wanted to create a space for people to start learning 3D printing hands-on. I also am not a person that learns very well from YouTube. I need to fiddle with things. I need my tools. So I started working in 2018 on 3D printing and educating people. The pandemic hit, and if you're a TV producer, you don't work a whole lot when there's a global pandemic. So I started teaching on Zoom classes. And in 2022, I had an opportunity to open a physical space. So I did. I got some amazing companies, including Prusa, into my store, some great filament companies and accessory companies like E3D, who's around here too. And we opened a space because maker spaces are not the greatest business model. I worked in business television for 13 years. I would know this. So what I did is you can come, you can print, you can have people who know what they're doing print things, but you can also buy a printer, you can learn how to use a 3D printer. And we're gonna start the morning off with some statistics. Yay, our favorite thing. But from years 2022 to 2023, there's been an estimated growth of 23% of 3D printing. So that is, take about a quarter of this room, add that. That's how much space we need next year. For 3D printing. For entry-level 3D printers, since 2020, there has been a 63% year-over-year growth, which means we sell 63% more entry-level 3D printers every single year than the previous year. That nearly doubles the amount of users in consumer 3D printing. On the downside, industrial 3D printing, so work for print farms for small personal projects, has actually gone down by 30%. So instead of sending things off in your prototypes to a print farm, companies are starting to bring those in-house. And that's part of what we do. So how do we reach and become those 63% of entry-level printers? It all comes down to interacting with the community. So what we encourage is we work with ambassadorship programs with schools. We work with FRC teams, which is First Robotics. I'm not sure if there's a European equivalent, or if it's world. Yep, is it FRC here too? Awesome. So I was actually on the founding member of my robotics team before the current competitors were alive. So it's been a minute. So so we interact with robotics teams, we interact with community events, we do roads shows. So a lot of what my company does is not only can the average consumer walk in and buy a 3D printer, but we also do installations into pretty much all the local museums around our state and our region, as well as companies. So education companies, smaller ones that are making electronics, larger ones that are global, national contractors. We tell them, this is the type of printer you need to suit your needs because it's all customizable. And, I love what Joseph was saying about all the materials because we test every material before we sell it. So there's PLA, but what we have seen in the past year is a huge uptick in the average consumer printing in ABS, ASA, nylon even, and engineering materials. And this is thanks to the incredible innovations of all of these 3D printing companies that are creating printers like the Core One that you can have in your house and you can just print ASA without, your whole living room smelling absolutely terrible. Thank you, carbon filtering. So those are now being prototyped. There are children that are inventing the most incredible things. Last year, I was on my way back from Printopia in Maryland, and North Carolina was actually hit by a major hurricane. Maybe some of you heard about Hurricane Helen on the news. And so my store is in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I actually went to college in Asheville, which got hit. And I put out a call on Facebook that morning as I got back into Raleigh and saw just everything was just wet. We were fine, our power was fine, but Raleigh suddenly became the central disaster relief hub for pretty much all disaster relief. So I put out a post on Facebook. I said, what can we 3D print? What can we innovate? And a lot of people said, you can't 3D print basic needs, which is true. However, we can print tools to help. So several companies, including the Asheville Tool Library, Connect Carolina, Ruma, all reached out and said, hey, I need this, this, and this. We can't get this over from overseas. The roads are blocked. We can't get trucks in. The flights are, the cargo flights are flooded with other things like food, water. And one of the examples that we became 3D printing headquarters, pretty much. One of the examples is water was being trucked in on all sorts of things, fire trucks, RV things, and those didn't have pipes that went into these large water tanks you could put in a house to bring water to people. So what we needed is, they said, we need fitters because the glue for the hosing actually makes water non-potable. But you know what is potable? PETG filament. So we had some amazing companies donate a bunch of filament, and we had a decentralized print farm, essentially. So we put out the call on our community pages. We had people in Utah and New York, and a bunch of engineers moved into the back room and engineered every flavor of fitter to go to any garden hose that could possibly be made. And we sent out that design to a bunch of high school students, and we had 17 high schools in our area print farming. And we sent out about 500 parts within 24 hours that got helicoptered in and brought water to thousands of people. This kind of innovation is encouraged by the 3D printing community interacting with kids, because how I explained it, we also made a bunch of Starlink adapters to bring internet back to hundreds of thousands of people, because you couldn't mount a Starlink adapter when there's no roof. So you needed to put it on a telephone pole, which means you had to 3D print an adapter. I had to describe it to some 10-year-olds and said, okay, there are kids out there, they're just like you, and they can't call their grandma. They can't call, an ambulance. They also can't play Fortnite. The kids were really, really concerned about that last part. So they got to work. Those other kids needed to play Fortnite, apparently, and Minecraft. So it was just really special to interact with these students, to see that, this applies to the real world. It's not just about making your fidget toys and your Minecraft toys for your friends and your dice towers, but you can make actual things. And these kids are the engineers of tomorrow. However, there is, if anyone's been seeing the news in the United States, there's not a whole lot of education funding these days. So it's really been, I've seen so many 3D printing companies do so many amazing initiatives to teach these kids. My team travels around the country doing educational workshops and moments and working with, foster children, lower income schools to bring these skills in manufacturing to students, because someone's got to go fill those engineering schools, and they need to have some of these hard skills to learn 3D printing. So additive manufacturing has really encouraged innovation for so many things. We've sponsored a lot of hackathons, and we encourage a lot of companies to continue to sponsor hackathons and such, to where we just give students problems and say, how would you fix this? And the things that kids think about and come up with is actually crazy sometimes. During the pandemic, there was a kid that designed the mask saver to keep your mask off your ears. And those went viral, and there were so many printed out. But that was designed by a 14-year-old, like the very popular model. So these kids out there are really, really smart and probably better at gluing and sewing than I am. So I'm good at 3D printing, I'm an amateur when it comes to sewing and tailoring. So I just want to give a message of hope and encouragement that the younger generation is eager to 3D print, but we should look at how do we support these kids even more? How do we support the general consumer? Because people walk into my store and they think, oh, your audience is a bunch of 30-something-year-old tech guys, that probably work in IT and have a printer on their desk to make their D&D figurines. That's actually completely correct. We have plenty of those people. But if you've ever seen a picture of my store or been to my store, you'll actually see that it's very pink in there. It's playing a lot of Taylor Swift. And we have a great snack bar. And we have a claw machine, and it's just very welcoming because this is a space to where, women in 3D printing can really learn. All these girls can be encouraged that this is also a place for you. You can innovate really cool things to wear, but also you could make today you can make something that helps with disaster relief and deploys that decentralized manufacturing, which has been incredible with just school print farms. So, I literally said, I have a robot army that's ready to go because these teenagers can't go volunteer in the mud. Their parents won't let them. But they need something to do, and these kids want to help. So we created a space where people can come in, they can, and it's, my actual average customer is a middle schooler. They can come in, they get to see 3D printing, and you have a huge range of kids who have watched a lot of 3D printing YouTube and finally convinced their parents to take them to the 3D printing store. And then you have the parents, their kids that say, we've seen our 3D printed dragons on TikTok. How does this work? And I say, well, it's pretty much a hot glue gun on some motors that's a lot more accurate than we are. And it just clicks. And that moment feels like absolute magic. So I just want to tell everyone, there are so many projects out there. Involve your local schools, involve your local community, and look for disaster relief because there is so much in this amazing, bright future for consumer 3D printing. And I think that's my time. So thank you. How do I get down?
Thank you, Beverly. Thank you so much.